have to read. Okay, so one of you has to read. Yasmin, will you read today?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, but it is not.
But it is not with this deep and moving word of God to man, but rather with the first necessary rays of light on the path, directed not like that of the soul, but to the intellect, that the exposition begins. Not first, but the guide and teacher who has to remove from him his ignorance of his true self and of the nature of the world and of the springs of his own action. For it is because he acts ignorantly, with a wrong intelligence and therefore a wrong will in these matters, that man is or seems to be bound by his works. Otherwise, works are no bondage to the free soul. It is because of this wrong intelligence that he has hope and fear, wrath and and transient joy. Otherwise, works are possible with a perfect serenity and freedom. Therefore, it is the yoga of the buddhi, the intelligence, that is first enjoined on Arjuna to act with right intelligence and therefore a right will fixed in the one, aware of the one self in all, and acting out of its equal serenity, not running about in different directions under the thousand impulses of our superficial mental self, is the yoga of the intelligent will.
Yeah, beautiful para, and we'll go into detail to see what he's saying. Okay. But it is not with this deep and moving word of God to man. What is that deep and moving word? Abandon all dharmas, the last sentence of the previous para. Abandon all laws of conduct and take refuge in me alone. Don't have any standards of conduct. You give yourself up to me entirely. I will look at you like a parent to his child. And the child is helpless, but I will look and bring you up and do everything for you. But when is that possible? Not for normal man. Okay? For normal man, it's not possible. It's possible only for the man who is at the highest level of consciousness. But is Arjuna at the highest level of consciousness? No, he is not. Therefore, the advice which has to be given to him is of a lesser standard. Okay? It is something which has to be appropriate to his understanding of things. And what is that? He is intelligent, so it has to be addressed to his intelligence. That's what Sri is saying. But it is not with this deep and moving word of God to man. That is very difficult for Arjuna now because he can't surrender. He is in ignorance and he is limited. He is in the moral field. He is limited to his moral ideas. Rather, with the first necessary rays of light on the path. So he has to explain to him at his level, and that's what he's doing. Okay, so directed not like that to the soul, because the soul is infinite and will understand, but he is not conscious of his soul. He is only conscious of the mind, and his mind is deciding that I don't want to fight. Therefore, he has to explain to the mind that his mind is wrong thought. Okay, that the exposition begins. Exposition of what? Exposition of the yoga of the intelligent will. That means Jnana Yoga. That's a chapter. The yoga of the intelligent will. Yoga of the intelligent will, very clearly, Jnana Yoga. You go and understand with the understanding Vichara and Viveka. These are the two elements of Jnana Yoga. Which are think what is the right and what is the wrong, which is the permanent and which is the transient. Reject the transient and go to the permanent. And Viveka, discrimination. Okay, so he is not talking to the soul, he is talking to the intellect. That's why it's an intelligent will. Okay, and it is intelligence. It's not the ordinary man, the mind of man. It is to the mind of man which is awakened to some extent. Okay, so that the exposition begins. Exposition of the yoga. Not the friend and lover of man speaks first, but the guide and teacher. Now, what is the friend and lover of man? Lover is also Ananda, but it is not the Ananda aspect, because Ananda aspect is at the highest level, the personal aspect, but he is as a guide and a teacher at a lower level. Okay, so in fact, that's a interesting thing about the Gita. It gives you guidance at all the levels. That's the interesting part. Okay, it advises people who are at a normal level of consciousness, those who are even at no yogic consciousness at all, and those who are turned towards religion, and those who are turned towards yoga, and those who are already realized souls. The Gita is applicable to all, particularly that is brought out in the last chapter of the essays on the Gita. So, so he is not,
But
yeah,
Rangata,
yeah,
however much you explain to the mind, unless there is some faith, it won't understand, right?
it won't understand fully. You are right.
Fully.
But it is a progress. Now, slowly you understand part, and as you go on applying that part, the understanding grows larger, larger until you understand at the end everything. Of course, we can't understand everything fully. But if he addresses the soul, it is even more difficult. So he has to first address that part of the human being which is likely to understand. Okay, and that's the mind. That's exactly what he's saying here. You are right.
But
Okay.
the base has to be faith, right?
No,
First.
the base cannot be right first. The base is the body, mind, life, and that is ignorance. So slowly, slowly it has to rise. The base of normal man is ignorance and identification with body, mind, life. He is not aware of his soul. So through that base of ignorance, he has to slowly climb towards the base of the soul. That takes time. So he is addressing the base of the ignorant man first. And that's exactly the point. That's why he's not a friend and lover, but he's a guide and teacher at a lower level. Okay? He's addressing himself to the mind. Okay? Because that's the best part of him. So, of man speaks. It's a gradation. Remember the gradation, na? That's the whole thing. The guide and teacher who has to remove from him his ignorance. See, there you are. He is in ignorance and he has to remove. So, first of all, that part of the mind which is capable of understanding what he's saying, even if it be to a certain extent, he is addressing the mind of Arjuna. His ignorance he has to remove of his true self. First of all, you come to know the theoretical aspect. Okay, then you have to make it a practical truth. So, you are speaking of the practical truth, but that will take time. He has to start with the lowest. Okay, has to remove from him his ignorance of his true self and the nature of the world. So he neither understands his true self nor the nature of the world. He doesn't understand. He sees only the forms, but not the divine presence in the world. He does not see. And of the springs of his own action. Now that's very interesting. What are the springs of his own action? In man, the springs of action are ego, desire. In other words, it is mostly the vital, that is the springs of his action, and will. Okay. So these are the springs of his own action at the lower level. But at the higher level, what does it become? The springs of action come from the highest level. The divine is the spring of action, and he tells you what to do and not to do. So first of all, he has to remove the ignorance. Don't identify yourself with body, mind, life. Understand your own self is a real part of you, not your body, mind, life. That's what he has to explain to him. Okay, that's why he goes into what is death and what is the soul. All these things he goes into. He was to remove from him his ignorance of his true self and the nature of the world and of the springs of his own action. The springs of action at the lower level, as I said, are his ego and his desire. Okay, but at the higher level, it becomes guidance from the divine. For it is because he acts ignorantly with a wrong intelligence and therefore a wrong will in these matters that man is or seems to be bound by his works. Because he is not bound eternally. He is bound apparently, but he can get rid of his shackles. He can get rid of his chains. Otherwise, works are no bondage to the free soul. The soul which has realized that it is not the body, mind, life, is free and there is no bondage. It can continue to, after realization in the spiritual planes of consciousness that you are the self, you can continue to work in the physical world, unlike the ascetic who rejects his body, mind, life, not interested. But Srila is saying you can continue to work in the physical world without attachment. Your senses will not affect you. The senses will be like the sea, calm, quiet, and all the rivers and all the rivulets are coming into the sea, but do not affect the calmness of the sea. The sea remains absolutely still. The river comes and merges into the sea. It does not disturb the sea. So that is exactly what happens. All the desires enter into man who is realized, and when he is realized, these desires coming into him absolutely leave him unaffected. He remains absolutely calm and quiet. That's what Shiva is saying. Okay. In fact, the Gita is saying it is because of the wrong intelligence that he has hope and fear, wrath and grief, and transient joy. All the dualities. When you are subject to your body, mind, life, you are subject to the dualities. If you have pleasure, you are bound to have unpleasant experiences also. You will have sorrow. If you have a good will, there are times when you will also have bad will. Okay? These are all the transient, the dualities of the physical world. Therefore, so he has hope and fear, wrath and grief, and transient joy. Otherwise, works are possible with a perfect serenity and freedom. When is that possible? When you realize your soul, when you realize yourself, you realize that you are not the body, mind, life. Now, everything that comes into you is not affecting you at all. You are absolutely free. Therefore, the yoga of the buddhi, the intelligence, that is first enjoined on Arjuna. To act with right intelligence, with discrimination and viveka, and therefore a right will fixed in the one, aware of the one self in all, and acting out of its equal serenity, not running about in different directions under the thousand impulses of a superficial mental self, is a yoga of the intelligent will. So, beautifully, he has defined what is the Jnana Yoga. To act with right intelligence, not with wrong thoughts. And what is the right intelligence? That the divine is everywhere, transcendent, cosmic, and individual. That's it. And therefore, a right will fixed in the one. You have to see the divine everywhere. And if you see the divine everywhere, you will have no enemies, you will have no sadness, because the divine is there everywhere. That's, you are absolutely calm and quiet, serene. So, if they are using the word equal and serene. Equal to success and failure, equal to sorrow and pain and pleasure, equal to everything, dark and light. Not running about in different directions like the normal human being. The normal human being is subject to the dualities and is running about in different directions. Okay, under the thousand impulses of our superficial mental self. The superficial mental self is your outer nature, and he is talking only of the mental self here, the manomaya, not the purusha, but the outer nature. Manomaya purusha is the inner mind, that is different. It is the yoga of the intelligent will. The intelligent will, jnana yoga is you have to see the oneness everywhere, remove your identification with body, mind, life, try to think of yourself as the soul and try to bring it forward or rise to the self. There is a rising vertically out of your body, mind, life, or going deep into yourself, horizontally into yourself and find your soul. That's what he's saying. So it is being addressed at the lowest spiritual level to Arjuna. Okay, so we can go to the next para. There are, says the Gita. So, Sunki, will you read? I don't know if she's there. Yeah, she's there.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, read. There are, says the Gita.
There are, says the Gita, two types of intelligence in the human being. The first is concentrated, poised, one, homogeneous, directed singly towards the truth. Unity is its characteristic, concentrated fixity is its very being. In the other, there is no single will, no unified intelligence, but only an endless number of ideas, many branching, coursing, coursing about, that is to say, in this or that direction, in pursuit of the desires which are offered to it by life and by the environment. Buddhi, the word used, means, properly speaking, the mental power of understanding. But it is evidently used by the Gita in a large philosophic sense for the whole action of the discriminating and deciding mind, which determines both the direction and use of our thoughts, and the direction and the use of our acts. Thought, intelligence, judgment, perceptive choice, and aim are all included in its function. For the characteristic of the unified intelligence is not only concentration of the mind that knows, but especially concentration of the mind that decides and persists in the decision. Vyabhasaya. While the sign of the dissipated intelligence is not so much even discursiveness of the ideas and perceptions as discursiveness of the aims and desires, therefore of the will. Will, then, and knowledge are the two functions of the buddhi. The unified intelligent will is fixed in the enlightened soul. It is concentrated in inner self-knowledge. The many branching and multifarious, busied with many things, careless of the one thing needful, is, on the contrary, subject to the restless and discursive action of the mind, dispersed in outward life and works and their fruits. Works are far inferior, says the teacher, to yoga of the intelligence. Desire rather refuge in the intelligence. Poor and wretched souls are they who make the fruit of their works the object of their thoughts and activities.
Yeah. So he has started now teaching and what he has to do in the Jnana Yoga. Okay. So there are, says the Gita, two types of intelligence in the human being. Okay, we'll look at the words carefully, but basically what he says is there's a discursive mind, there's a dispersed and very, very diluted mind. It is not at all concentrated. And the other is the concentrated, where you are thinking only of one thing and you are not allowing all sorts of random thoughts to come into your head. Normally, our condition is random thoughts are coming into the head, and even when we are apparently concentrated, it's not real concentration. But yoga teaches you to concentrate only on one subject, and there is a focus. Sometimes they use the word uh, focus, that is the acute and obtuse. Acute is less than 90 degrees, it is sharp. And obtuse is more than 90 degrees, it is divergent, it is going outwards. So the normal mind of man is divergent, it is going outwards. The senses are all taking you out into the physical world. But the acute is focus. You have to concentrate all your senses, bring them into line and not let them run wild into the physical world. Sights and sounds and tastes and smells should not bother you. You are absolutely indrawn. That's a concentrated condition. So these two types of intelligence. Okay. Now with this idea, we read the text. Okay. Two types of intelligence in the human being. The first is, and note also in the human being, he is very clear. Okay. It's not possible at the animal level. The animal level can't concentrate. Nor is it applicable to the yogi above man because he is already concentrated. So it is applicable only to the human being. See how interesting it is. Same the accuracy of language. He is talking of only two types of intelligence only in the human being. Not in the animal, nor in the yogi. Okay. In the animal, nothing is there. And in the yogi, it is always concentrated. Otherwise, he won't be a yogi. Okay. So, in the man. In accuracy of language, that's what I'm pointing out to you. He never uses words uselessly. Okay. In the human being. The first is concentrated. Okay. Sharp. Poised. Not moving about. One. homogeneous. There are no distractions and there are no contradictions in that. Directed singly towards the truth. And what is the truth? It depends on your concentration. You can concentrate on anything. Anything can, the truth has so many aspects. That unity is its characteristic, oneness. Concentrated fixity is its very being. Very, very clear. Concentrated fixity. It is sharp and it is fixed only on one subject. Okay. In the other, where it is diverse and divergent, there is no single will, no unified intelligence, but only an endless number of ideas, many branching, coursing about, that is to say, in this or that direction, in pursuit of the desires which are offered to it by life and by the environment. That's all. If you let your senses run wild, the enjoyments and the everything in the physical world is offered to you. You see things and you get attracted, and there is attachment and desire is born from there. So going here and there. So the two conditions are very inward drawn, thinking only of one subject, and outward expanded, going out and not concentrated, affected by the environment and life's opportunities. Buddhi, the word used, means, properly speaking, the mental power of understanding. The word buddhi in Indian philosophy can be interpreted as the normal mind of man. That's what we use in our normal languages. We say buddhiman, he is very intelligent. But that's a lower mind. Huh? But there is a buddhi also, which is the higher mind. The higher mind in the spiritual planes of consciousness also is called buddhi. Okay. So, somebody is saying the word used means, properly speaking, the mental power of understanding, but it is evidently used by the Gita in a large philosophic sense for the whole action of the discriminating and deciding mind. These are the two words which he is translating from Sanskrit, viveka and vichara. Okay, discrimination, viveka, and think out and then decide. That's the vichara. So these are the two characteristics of the Jnana Yoga, which determines both the direction and use of our thoughts and the direction and use of our acts. Okay? When you narrow down your things, it's not going all over and it is not diluted, it is concentrated. Thought, intelligence, judgment, perceptive choice, and aim are all included in its functioning. When you are thinking, okay, and intelligently, there is a judgment which is more or less correct. There is a perceptive choice. You make a choice, but it is perceptive. It sees the right choice to make. And aim also are all included in its functioning. Buddhi. In its functioning, the functioning of the buddhi. For the characteristic of the unified intelligence, the higher buddhi, okay, unified intelligence, is not only concentration of the mind that knows. The mind that knows is not in ignorance anymore, it's in knowledge. But especially concentration of the mind that decides, okay, and persists in the decision. Vyavasaya. Vyavasaya is a persist in the decision making, practical. While the sign of the dissipated intelligence, okay, is not so much even discursiveness of the ideas and perceptions as discursiveness of the aims and desires. So the one who is not decided what he wants to do, and that is at the lowest level. And even if you know your aim and desire, okay, the ideas are still not concentrated. He is talking here of two conditions. The worst condition, you don't even have an aim in life. Okay, and then notice, you are a floater. You are like a leaf in the wind. You are just going here and there. Many human beings are like that. You ask them what they want in life, they are not sure. And those who know what they want also, their mind has to be concentrated. It is not often concentrated. That's what he's pointing out. Both. Okay. Dissipated intelligence. Dissipated, directed outwards, and diluted. Dissipated. Not even the tell me. Yeah.
Discursiveness is what? Discursiveness means?
Pardon? I didn't follow.
Discursiveness is what?
Discursive is same. Going outwards. Discursive. It goes outwards. Okay. It's not concentrated. Dissipated also is the same. Okay. And the ideas and perceptions are discursiveness of the aims and desires. So he is talking of two levels. You remember what Mother says? An aimless life is a miserable life. So you must have an aim. But depending on the quality of your aim will depend the quality of your life. In the science of living, Mother's first sentence itself. He says, an aimless life is a miserable life. So first of all, I have an aim. But maybe 50, 60, 70% of human beings don't even have an aim. And even if the aim is there, it's of a very low order. Okay. So human beings, what they want usually is, you get educated, you raise a family, you earn living, and then you have children and you leave your property to children. They are very happy. Okay. That's the aim. Very, very ordinary level of the aim. So that's what I'm saying. Then, will, then, and knowledge are the two functions of the buddhi. Finally, it comes down to will. And will is not possible without concentration and sharpness of the mind. Then, and knowledge are the two functions of the buddhi. The buddhi, which buddhi? The higher buddhi. The unified intelligent will is fixed in the enlightened soul. It is concentrated in inner self-knowledge, not outer world knowledge. Okay. Outer world knowledge is science. It's very good, but it is information. It is not knowledge. It is information. There is a big difference between information and knowledge. Okay. Knowledge is knowing the principles of existence, and information is knowing the process of things, how to operate, how to do this, how to do that. Practical knowledge. The many branching and multifarious, busied with many things, careless of the one thing needful, is, on the contrary, subject to the restless and discursive action of the mind, dispersed in outward life, and works and their fruits. So, the normal man with a discursive mind is concentrated only in the outer life and the result of his actions. Okay? That's what he's saying. They are fruits, the result of his actions. Works are far inferior, says the teacher, to yoga of the intelligence. Now, this is very interesting, and you have to understand what is meaning, because later on he says karma yoga is the best. Now he is saying the opposite. Okay. So, works are far inferior, says the teacher, to yoga of the intelligence. Desire rather refuge in the intelligence. Okay. Desire means wish for, aim at. Okay, that's what it means here. Aspire for. Desire rather refuge in the intelligence, not in the vital and the outer actions. Poor and wretched souls are they who make the fruit of their works the object of their thoughts and activities. He's actually putting it in double quotes. It's the second verse of 49th verse of second chapter. Okay. Durena hi avaram karma buddhi yogat dhananjaya buddhav sharanam anvichya kripana phala hetava. Kripana, they are very small-minded and very, so they use the word wretched, poor and wretched souls are those who are wanting the results of their own action. So, from the spiritual point of view, that's true. But from the practical point of view, it's very, very useful to have motives and expect the fruits of your action. Because if you don't expect the fruits of your action, when you are at a lower level of consciousness, you are not sharp and you don't care what the results are, that won't do. In the physical world, you have to be very, very clear that I want to succeed. But if you go to a spiritual level of consciousness, you do the best you can, or rather you don't do. The divine is doing through you, and you don't care what the result is because the divine will take care of the result. So that's what he's saying. Okay, so. But here is very interesting. Here he's telling you that first of all, in the beginning, your mind must be clear. So karma yoga will come later on, because karma yoga you have to do action with the right knowledge. And if you don't have the right knowledge, how will you get the results of the actions? So first of all, buddhi yoga is superior to karma yoga. Later on, he will tell you that Karma Yoga is superior to the Buddhi, depending at which stage you are. Okay, it's interesting. This discussion also is there. Sendra is discussed in one of the volumes. Okay, and in great detail he has discussed this. Guru and student, Guru and student. He has got it, and he has discussed this question fully. So it's very clear. In the beginning, now Arjuna is in ignorance. Therefore, he has to resort first to right knowledge, and that means yoga of the intelligent will. And once he gets the right knowledge, then he can act correctly. Then karma yoga comes into the picture. Okay. So 8:20. We have got 15 minutes. We can read one more para. So who will read? I don't know if Archana has got the text and she is there.
I'll read.
Okay, go ahead. We must remember.
Tarika, okay, Tarika, go ahead. Tarika,
No,
go ahead.
fine. I thought, no, you can go. Go ahead.
Okay.
We must remember the psychological order of the Sankhya, which the Gita accepts. On one side, there is the Purusha, the soul, calm, inactive, immutable, one, not evolutive. On the other side, there is Prakriti or nature force, inert, without the conscious soul, active but only by juxtaposition to that consciousness. By contact with it, as we would say, not as much one at first as indeterminate, triple in its qualities, capable of evolution and involution. The contact of soul and nature generates the play of subjectivity and objectivity, which is our experience of being. What is to us the subjective first evolves because the soul consciousness is the first cause. Inconstant nature force only the second and dependent cause. But still, it is nature and not soul which supplies the instruments of our subjectivity. First in order come buddhi, discriminative or determinative power evolving out of nature force, and its subordinate power of self-discriminating ego. Then, as a secondary evolution, there arises out of these the power which seizes the discriminations of objects, sense mind or manas. We must record the Indian names because the corresponding English words are not real equivalents. As a tertiary evolution, out of sense mind, we have the specializing organic senses, 10 in number, 5 of perception, 5 of action. Next, the powers of each sense of perception, sound, form, scent, etc., which give their value to objects for the mind and make things what they are to, to our subjectivity. And as the substantial basis of these, the primary conditions of the objects of sense, the 5 elements of ancient philosophy, or rather elementary conditions of nature, Panchabhuta, which constitute objects by the various combinations.
Okay, so he is going back to something of the Indian psychological knowledge. Okay, so
The Sankhya philosophy.
yeah, he's going back to the Sankhya. Okay. It's interesting because these things are not very clearly defined in Western philosophy. They don't have this idea that you are part of the universe. And when you are part of the universe, you are just a small element in the universe and you are interacting with the universe. The universe is interacting much more with you and you are interacting with the universe at a very, very minute level. Your thoughts you are throwing out into the vast sea of mind, universal mind. Your emotions are very small elements in the, and you are throwing that out into the physical world, not physical world, but the cosmos, which is the vast, infinite cosmos of prana. And your body also is a very small formation of matter in the vast, infinite universe. So, this is the interaction. The universe is interacting much more with you. In fact, to such an extent that the universe itself is operating you like a puppet. Okay, this is the truth which you have to understand. We feel that we are doing, but we are not the doer. It is universal nature which is the doer in us. So, we'll read I think we can just, 10 minutes we have. We must remember the psychological order of the Sankhya, which the Gita accepts. It does not accept at the higher level, but at the lower level it accepts. The Gita accepts the Sankhya philosophy. On the one side, there is the Purusha, the soul, calm, inactive, immutable, one, not evolutive. Okay. So when it is saying not evolutive, he is talking of the self, but he is using the word soul. Calm, inactive, immutable, one, not evolutive. It's not the psychic being, huh? It's very clearly these words indicate the self, because the self, the psychic being evolves, and it's not immutable. It is identifying itself with the body, mind, life, and thinking that it is acting. Okay. In the beginning, the psychic being is like that. Okay. So he is talking of the self, very clear. Okay. He is using the word soul in a very general sense. Okay. In the sense of Jivatman. Okay. So this is the self, not psychic being. Not psychic being. Okay. On the other side, there is Prakriti or nature force, inert, without the conscious soul. Inert means not conscious, okay? Active, but only by juxtaposition to that consciousness, by contact with it, as we would say, not so much one at first as indeterminate, triple in its qualities, capable of evolution and involution. The soul is not evolving, the self is not evolving, but the nature force. Which is the nature force? Very clearly, at the universal level, the world of matter, the world of prana, universal, and the world of mind. These are worlds which exist universally. And in man, these universal worlds become individual beings. Matter becomes the body, the universal prana becomes a vital being, and the mind, universal mind, where thought is the ruling element, it becomes your individual brain and mind. Okay? So that's what he's saying. And that is evolutive. It is changing. Your body, mind, life. And what is it subject to? It is first indeterminate. Okay. In other words, matter is indeterminate. You know? Indeterminate means without any features. Triple in its qualities. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Remember? Mind, body, life, and mind. Triple in its qualities. Triguna. Okay. Capable of evolution and involution. So, the universal nature is evolving very clearly. First there is matter, then there is life, and then there is mind. And in the individual also it's the same. You have a body first, and then slowly the senses come in, life comes in, and then finally you have the mind also which comes in. So this is what he's saying. Soul and nature. They are in contact, although they are always separate. Okay. And that what is the nature of that contact? It is exactly like the cinema screen and the images being thrown on it. Okay. When you are in the higher experience of the self, there are no images coming onto the screen. You become the screen. Wide, infinite, absolutely immutable calmness without features. Okay. And it identifies when the images are being thrown on it, the screen is showing these images. And that is the condition of the psychic being which identifies itself with body, mind, life. Body, mind, life is giving you images. And the soul thinks that yes, I am acting. Okay. And it takes the form of the ego. So this is what is being said. Okay. The contact of soul and nature generates the play of subjectivity and objectivity. Subjectivity, your soul, and objectivity, your physical, the body, mind, life. Okay, very clear. Subjective, soul. Objective, body, mind, life. And you seem to confuse between the two, no? Most of us are not aware of our psychic being. So there's confusion. Which is our experience of being. What is to us the subjective first evolves because the soul consciousness is the first cause. Inconsequent nature force only the second and dependent cause. But still, it is nature and not soul which supplies the instruments of our subjectivity. So, subjectivity also is of two types. You are thinking you are a body, mind, life, and you are thinking yourself to be separate from others. That's the first subjectivity. The second subjectivity is when you become aware of your soul. That's what he's saying. But the first subjectivity is always the body-mind life. First in order comes buddhi. Okay? Discriminative and determinative power evolving out of nature force and its subordinate power of self-discriminating ego. Then, as a secondary evolution, there arises out of these the power which seizes the discriminations of objects, sense, mind, or manas. Okay, what he's doing is he's going according to the Sankhya philosophy, starting from the highest level and coming down. Okay, so he's going to first, this is the Purusha and nature coming together, first produces buddhi, and then there is the manas. Okay, then there is the ahankara. Okay, so these are the things that evolve in the Sankhya philosophy. First there is the buddhi, then there is the manas, then there is the ahankara. Okay, so these are the way it is coming down. Manas is the sense mind. Okay, which is that part of you which is the interpreting the senses. Now he's saying we must record the Indian names because the corresponding English words are not real equivalents. As a tertiary evolution, okay, out of sense mind, we have the specializing organic senses, 10 in number, 5 of perception, 5 of action. The 5 of perception are our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Okay, the normal 5 senses. They are what are called the Jnanendriya. They give you jnana of the physical world. Then the 5 of action are the karmendriyas. This idea is absolutely absent in Western philosophy. You are part of the universe and you are interacting with the universe. The universe is interacting with you through your senses and you are interacting with the universe through your karmendriya. And what are they? Your hands. My hands can produce an effect in the physical world. I can pat somebody and he will be very happy. I can slap somebody and there will be an effect in the physical world. I can use my legs also for the same reason. I can kick a football, there is an effect in the physical world. I am interacting with the world. Okay. So hands and legs. Then the 2 organs at the lower end of the body. Okay. For reproduction and for rejection. Okay. The 2 organs. You are also interacting with the world. No? And then finally, the one that we normally don't understand, your speech. When you speak kind words, there's an effect in the physical world. When you speak harsh words, there's an effect in the physical world. So karmendriya and jnanendriya. So these are the as a tertiary evolution out of sense mind, okay, we have the specializing organic senses, 10 in number, 5 of perception, 5 of action. So Srinath uses the words inferent and efferent. Inferent, the knowledge of the world coming in through your senses. If your senses are not there, knowledge of the physical world won't come to you. You are understanding the universe only through your senses. Therefore, it's very defective. Your understanding of the universe is very defective. Why? Because the instruments of knowledge, your senses are very defective. You don't see everything. You don't hear everything. Very limited. Okay. Then the others. Next, the powers of each sense of perception, sound, form, scent. You remember I gave you a chart long ago. Okay. It was in Sankhya and Yoga. I gave you a chart. Okay. Okay. I'm showing you on the camera, but I don't think you have the camera. But this chart which I gave you. Okay, this one. If you have the camera, you will have to see that chart. This is the Sankhya philosophy that is talking about. There is the 4 things that evolve in the Sankhya philosophy is first of all buddhi, then ahankara, then manas, and then chitta. Okay, these are and they produce the 5 jnanendriyas and the 5 karmendriyas. Okay, so where was I? Yeah. I've lost the page. Just 1 second. I think it was 98, no? Yeah, 88. I've got it. Yeah.
97.
So, yeah, I've got it now. No, my page is different. No? My page is different. I've got it. Okay. Then next, he's saying the evolution. Okay. The evolution is in nature. Okay. So evolution and involution actually. Actually, it depends on how you speak of them. Because when they are coming out of the Satchidananda, there is a sense of involution. Satchidananda is involving itself in the opposite of itself. But also you can say that in this Satchidananda, these are all in amorphous form, without form. And when they are coming down, they are expressing themselves. So that's why evolution is, the word is used. Okay. So, so sense of perception, sound, form, scent, etc. which give their values to objects of the mind and make things what they are to our subjectivity. And as the substantial basis of these, the primary conditions of the objects of sense, the 5 elements of ancient philosophy, which are the rather elementary conditions of nature, Panchabhuta. And what are the Panchabhuta? Earth, air, water, fire, and earth. Okay. So, the Sanskrit equivalents also are there, Panchabhuta, but I have not marked them here. But it's very obvious that there is the ether. Okay. Ether, air, fire, water, and earth. These are the Panchabhuta, which constitutes objects of their various combinations. So this is what he's saying. So you have to understand, you have to understand what you are. You are the soul and you are the Prakriti, and you have to discriminate between the two. That's the first step of the Jnana Yoga. That's what he's saying. So we have gone 2 minutes beyond our time. So we can stop here now. Next time.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
What did you say were the 5 of action? Hands, legs, speech. You said 2 organs. So what are the other 2?
That's it.
You mean the Karmendriya?
Yes, yes.
Kamendriya.
Karmendriya are the hands and legs and the 2 organs at the lower end of the body. Okay. One for reproduction and one for ejection. Okay. You have 2 organs. Yeah, that's the. And finally, the third one is the mouth. The speech that you have. With your speech, you can have an effect in the physical world. No?
Okay.
So these are the Karmendriyas. They are
Okay.
also. Yeah, that's
Thank you.
okay. Au revoir, everybody. Have a nice day.
Merci
Thank you,
beaucoup.
Ranganath.
Au revoir.
Thank you,
Bonne
Ranganath.
journée.